Alright, so this is it. This is the final chapter in the entire series. And what we're going to do in this is, since we've set up almost everything else, we just need to set up the shader for the terrain. And I have set up the shader for the instances. So I'll just quickly show you what that is. Which is, I've just given it some random coloring. Okay, so if I turn them on, I'll turn on the rock instances and the plants. And what I can do is I can just come into the ROPNet. I have a second camera. So I'm just going to switch to camera 2. So you should be able to see them. I'll hit a reload. Alright, so this is it. So if I zoom in a little closer, like if I go to camera 2 and if I zoom in, you should be able to see the random coloring. See, there you go. So you can see the plants have like a little bit of random coloring. So the process is fairly simple. I made it in the ShopNet. So there is a material called grass and there's a material called flower. And what it is you just take a random color node and then you plug it into a gradient and give it, 2, 3, 4, whatever colors you want. So if I just come in here and I was to give it like a blue as well, so you'll see that. And so I can just take this in and, so you can just adjust it any which way you feel like. Like let's say I want to make this slightly yellow. So you can do that. If I come in here, let's say I want to add like a slightly lighter color in the middle. Maybe make it slightly yellowish. If you want very fixed colors, you can change this to constant. So then you'll have like really fixed colors. See. So then it doesn't it doesn't blend through everything. It gives you very fixed patches of colors. But there you go. So this is how you can like give some random coloring to your to your plants. And so this is it. So this is how you can give random coloring to your plants and the clover. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to set up the shader for the terrain. In order to do that, I need to use the attributes on the terrain. So what we'll do is, if we come into the height field, it has a couple of attributes that we need. So primarily two. I need the flow attribute and I need the road. So what you want to do is, and this will only work if you are on Octane 2018.1. So this is like the latest version of Octane. If you don't have that, this is not going to work because the previous versions don't support attributes. But what you can do is, if you don't have like the latest version, you can just write out a map. So you just go into the way in the beginning when we wrote out, debris and the road map, you can write out a flow map. So that method works, perfectly fine. This I'm just doing because we have access to attributes. So why not use that? So just click object parameters and then come to attributes and point float attributes. We want the flow and we want the road. That's basically it. Okay, so let's just come into ShopNet and we'll set up a shader for this. So I'm going to create an Octane network. We'll call it terrain. I will drag and drop it here. We'll just take a simple glossy shader and plug this in. I'll remove the specular for now. And what I'll do is, just to show you, I'm going to take, if you type an attribute, you'll find color vertex attribute or float vertex attribute. The vertex doesn't mean anything, but you just take the color attribute or the float attribute. So we need two of them, right? So I need, this will be flow. We'll call it flow. And then we need, if I take Control-C, Control-V, this will be road. And we'll call this road. So if I plug in the flow and hit render, yeah, so there you go. So you have your flow map. So if I zoom out a bit, you should be able to see it. Okay, and similarly, if I plug in the road map, there you go. So you have the road. So which is fine. So these are the two things that we want. Now, along with this, I'm also going to use a little bit of OSL in order to calculate the slope of this. Now, again, you don't need to do anything. I will provide the OSL map with this. So a long time back, I did this training called floating islands. And for that, I used basic WOPs to generate a slope map for my rocks. So I could have like grass on top of the rocks. And I sort of looked it up and I saw what the math was. The math was very simple. And I decided to just, make it into an OSL map. So it's quite useful overall. So just to show you the math. So the math is essentially, you are going to do a dot product of the y-axis and the normal, and then do a complement of that. So a complement is essentially a 1 minus. Okay, so what you essentially get is we need a vector which will be 0, 1, 0, and then we need the normals. And what you do is you do a dot product of this vector and the normals, and then we do a 1 minus. So this is it. You don't need to do this at all. I'm just explaining this. Even if you don't understand it, it's fine. I don't understand it either. But just to show it to you, this is it. This is the OSL texture. Okay, so you can see it here. It's 1 minus dot of, I used a vector called M and it's N. Okay, that's the normal. So the way to use it is fairly simple. If you type in OSL, you'll get something called texture OSL, and we are going to pick it up. So I'll just come into OSL and slope. And if you say compile, it'll generate a vector. So the vector has to be in the y-axis. And then if I plug that in here and hit IPR, yeah, there you go. So it just generates the slope. Now the way to control it, like the way I usually do it, is you take a color correct and you plug this into a color correct. So what happens is if you adjust the gamma, you can then adjust, the slope amount, and you can adjust the contrast to define which area you are controlling. And you can also invert it. So if you want, so there you go. So this is good for generating like snow if you want, but it's good for a lot of things overall. So we're going to use this, and what we're going to do is we're going to generate two textures, one for the ground and one for the cliffs. And then we're just going to blend them together. So what I'm going to do is the color correction will remain. I'll take a simple gradient. I'll plug this into a gradient, and let me just adjust this like that. So it's fairly, yeah, I think this is good. So the second thing I want to do is I want to multiply it with the flow map. So we'll just take a multiply, and I'm going to multiply it with the flow. So you get that. So this becomes our basic for the ground texture. Now along with this, I would also like to have a noise map. So I'm just going to take a noise map here, and we'll plug it into diffuse. Now what I need to do is I just need to transform this, because this is going to be fairly small. So just take the scale and bring it up to about 400 or 500. Yeah. And take the scale in the y-axis and make it about 200. No, hold on. Yeah, so take the scale in the y-axis and make it higher still. So this will be about 2000. Okay, so that will give you like stretching on the y-axis. Alright, so this is done. So first thing I'll do is we'll just take another gradient, and this will be for color. So let's just give this a little bit of color. So what I want is, this is the cliff color, and we'll just make it like, dark brown or grayish, and this will be green. And then we want a little more green here. Yeah, you can also take maybe another color correct here just to adjust this. So we'll plug in a color correct and adjust the gamma. Yeah, so we can get a little more green in here. Yeah, there you go. I think this is fine. And then I'm going to multiply it with a noise map. So the noise map that we have, I will just do a multiply and plug that in. So if I take this and put it into a color correct again, and we can adjust the contrast. See, so you can adjust, you can have like patches, and just increase the octaves and increase the, the gamma. Actually, that can be done even without the color correction, because there is gamma and contrast inbuilt over here. So I can just increase this, see, and then just, adjust that. So what it does is it allows you to just break up the map a little bit more. Okay, I think this is fine. So this is the ground level texture. If you want to see it from ground level, just come back to ROPNet, and we can switch this to camera 1. And there you go. This is the, the ground level texture that we have. Alright, the second map we want to create is pretty much the same thing. Let me just go back to camera 2. Is we're going to take this color correct. Okay, this is the slope. And what I want to do is I want to invert it and then generate a color map out of it. So I'm just going to take this down. We'll take a color correct and plug it in, and let's bring it here and do an invert. So we get the cliffs, and then plug this into a color correction. Sorry, plug this into a gradient. Yeah, and just we can set up the colors. So just set up a basic color for the cliffs, and we'll make the ground color as well, just so that we don't get any blank patches when we do that. And I'm going to duplicate this noise map. So do Control C, Control V, like take this up here, and we will multiply it with this. So we'll just take a multiply and plug that in. Yeah, and just offset the map so that it has a different range to it. We can also adjust that. Okay, so once you've done that much, what we want to do is we just want to mix these together. Okay, so just take a mix texture, and what we want is the same slope map comes into the amount. Okay, so this goes into the first one and this goes into the second one. So we can call this as cliff color, and we can call this as ground color. And then we take this and just bring it in there. And so what you'll get is this. So you have the cliffs and you have the ground. And then lastly, I want to bring in the road. So we take another mix texture and a simple color. So we'll just take a color RGB, take a mix. So this comes into the first one, that goes in there. This will be a simple, like you can do a brown or something. And this comes here. So this goes in there, and that comes in here. See, so you have, like, if I adjust this, you have the road color. So if you want to make like a black road or like a tar road or something, you can do that. Alright, so this is as far as our color map is concerned. So let's do one thing. Let's also build up a bump map. Okay, so what we'll do is, this will be fairly simple. I'm going to duplicate the noise. So let's just do Control C, Control V. I'll bring it out here and just plug this in. So we'll have that. And what we can do is this, let's just plug it into a color correct. We'll plug it into the bump map, and we might have to up the values a little too high. So let's go to about 100. Yeah, we'll start to get some. Let's go to about 400. Yeah, so there you go. Okay, so this is at about 400, which is fine. So we'll keep this for ground, and then I'm going to duplicate this. Like, let's just duplicate this guy. So Control C, Control V, and I'm going to change this to chips. Okay, and chips will give you that. We'll lower the contrast, we'll adjust the gamma, and I'm going to lower the omega as well. And let's plug that into bump, and that should give us something for the cliff faces. Okay, so if I just take this up, let me just lower that to 5. Yeah, there we go. See, so you can see some damage happening here. Let's do one thing. Let's try to get it about 500. Yeah, this is nice. We can try something. Let's try to invert this and lower the omega a little bit. Yeah, no, don't invert it. So this should be fine. Let's see how high we can go with this. Let's go to 1000. Yeah, there you go. 1000 is nice. See, so you're getting like these nice little cuts on the cliff sides. Okay, like if I remove that, you'll see that it's like this is fairly smooth, and then this gives you a pretty nice result. So what we can do is, like, so this is the ground texture, and then this is the cliff texture. Let me try to increase the omega a little bit on this. Yeah, that's not bad. We can try to adjust the contrast, so we could probably get like deeper grooves or something. Oh yeah, this is nice. Okay, so what we'll do is the same texture that we have, I'm just going to do like an alt click, and we'll do a mix. So not a material mixer, just take a mix texture, and so this comes in here, and let's just see if this works. It should technically. So this comes into the first one, let's call this cliff bump, and we'll call this ground bump, and this comes into the second one, and then the material mix comes in here. Yeah, so what it should allow us is that like these areas will have that grainy noise map. So you can see the difference. Yeah, so you can, as you can see, so the ground level has this grainy noise map, and then the cliff faces have those vertical, chips noise map that we have. Okay, so it gives you like a nice little distinction. And then I can just bring back the diffuse map that we have, and we're done. I'll just blur this out a little bit more. I don't want it that shiny, but there you go. So this gives you like a fairly decent, terrain. So if I come back to camera 1, like let's switch this to camera 1, and we'll switch this to camera 1. Yeah, I think actually we can just lower the specular as well, because this is going to shine too much otherwise. So let's just come into the ShopNet, into the terrain, and I'm going to just lower the specular. Yeah. Okay, and that's basically it. So now we can just bring back everything else and do a render. I think we're done. We can just hit a render. So let me just save this file, and let's hit IPR, and we should be done. So this is essentially it. So this is the entirety of the rocket bus. So the rocket bus is finally taking off. So in conclusion, as I said in the beginning, the idea behind this project was to try and build a scene where you could go through like a whole variety of techniques in Houdini. Okay, so the idea was essentially that if you are a beginner and you want to get more comfortable using Houdini, then you can just use as many tools that Houdini provides in this one project, so you get a little more comfortable with it. So I hope like from that standpoint this was successful. So if you have any questions regarding this training or any of my other trainings or any of my free videos, then you can write an email to me. You can message me on any of the social media platforms that I am on, and usually I answer. I think I answer about 80% of the times. So once again, I hope this training was useful, and that's basically it.